Our panelist today, and make sure I get up the, will be, I guess since the, since his is up first. The first panelist today is going to be
Lebkuecher.
Rip Lebkuecher, and he is president with the Hendersonville Club, and he's going to be talking about the importance for success of club planning. After he's finished with his presentation, Jamie Parker with the Franklin Rotary Club, who is dressed in Rotary rodeo gear, is going to be presenting on the visioning process. The way the panel discussions are set up, kind of the rules of the road, we're going to take 15 minutes for each one of our presenters to lay out their ideas and suggestions. We do have some writing utensils and some places to take notes. Please hold your questions until they're finished with their presentations, and then you can have an opportunity just to ask them questions, and then they can respond and open up it for discussion for the final 30 minutes today. So without further ado, come up, Rip.
Thank you, Adam. Now, if we just know how to turn this baby on the side. Okay. That's cool. I like it. Jamie is going to be talking to you a little bit about visioning, a little bit about strategic planning, and my part of this presentation is to discuss what happens once visioning and planning has been established. This is the nitty-gritty. This is down in the grass, and I'm not saying what I'm going to tell you is what you need to do exactly in your club, because your club is different. But you might want to look at the concepts and then take those concepts and make them applicable to your club. So as we start out in looking at club planning, you've got to first understand how to operate this machine.
Arrows left and right.
Is this one over here? You think Mr. Tanaka did any planning before he came around? Each of your presidents have been through years of planning, and the planning is very important. Mr. Tanaka probably spent 5 or 6 years working on his plan. Before Dan became district governor, you think he didn't do some planning? Of course he did. So planning is key. Our club took the mantra, you manage what you measure. And so if you're going to measure things, you're going to manage them. You do that in the real world. Back when I used to make money, we measured and then managed. Now it's been a few years since I've done that, but we sure did it with our club. 2 things, long-term strategies, and then you're looking at short-term goals. And those are the 2 directions that we use, strategies and goals. One of the things I got to thinking about, I said, my gosh, I've got 18 past presidents who've been there and done that in my club. I need their expertise, I need their knowledge, I need their ability to move this club forward. So one of the things that I knew that would probably happen, because I've been in board meetings before, our board will be concentrated on just a few weeks or a few months, most of the time, on what we are trying to achieve. Long-term planning is a whole different process, and the past President's Council was our venue in that direction. Each year, the past President Council elected a chair, and then we asked that chair to sit in on our board meetings as a non-voting member. And then we were asking them to work with our president-elect for the next year in terms of long-term goals. That club president has to have some input. The past president council is not a substitute for the board. It is an enhancement for the board only. The past presidents will probably meet at least 3 and on occasion 4 times a year. And then at the very end, that past President's Council and the new president will have a very good working relationship with each other. Now, what does long-term planning mean? Let's talk about it. We went out 3 years only. We're not one of these 5-year planners. We said 3 is plenty time to go out. 5 years from now, that wasn't something that we were interested in. So we looked at long-range implementation too, because you can do lots of planning, then, whoa, how do you implement it? What goes first? What can be set back? And so this is part of that past President's Council's ideas on what we need to do 2 years, 3 years down the road. And then one of the things that dawned on us is, are we doing a really good job with our philanthropic monies? That was something that rung a bell with us real strongly. 2 or 3 years ago, our philanthropic budget was about $50,000. This past year, our philanthropic budget was $107,000. That's a lot of money. And we felt like we needed to have a good fiduciary responsibility as it related to that $100,000. So what the past President's Council did is to let us talk about this. And they came up with a brilliant idea. The Memorial Fund, the foundation, one of the greatest foundations in Middle Tennessee, has done a phenomenal job in terms of philanthropic endeavors. So they went to the Memorial Fund, a foundation, and guess what? They gave us some great ways to look at how to vet an agency and how to deal with them. So again, here is a good example of planning by using who you've got in your club. And then finally, the past presidents, we had them to help us with very unique problems. They've been there, they've done that. When we ran into some pretty tough problems from time to time, they were a great enhancement to our club. The other item was what we want to call a planning calendar, or simply a to-do list. Last year, about this time, I was thinking, oh boy, what is January going to look like? What is November going to look like? And I thought, you know, I can get these calendars from Rotary, but what is it going to look like at the club that I am going to have to manage, or help manage? So what I did is each month I decided, okay, let's put a planning calendar together. What are the key issues? What are the key tasks that if you do those, you will be successful? If you don't do them, you might not be as successful. And then who is responsible for it? So in about, I would guess, April, this calendar started formulating and forming. By the time July came around, I had a 12-month calendar on what I wanted to do. But this would give you an idea of what July looked like. What does it look like now? This is what last month I looked at, and our board looked at it. And the board said, these are the things that we need to make darn sure we cross our T's and dot our I's on in order to move forward. So planning is very, very important, going out 1 year or going out 3 years. Short term, this is what I live with for the most part. This is the urgencies that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I took and gave to the board with their permission and said, here are 7 areas that means a lot to our club. These 7 areas will either make us or break us at the end of the year. I didn't have 30 or 40, I just looked at 7. So each club meeting, we go over our club goals. We go over our club projects, and we look very closely at our philanthropic and our operational budget. Then we look at membership status, attendance, for sure fundraising, because without that you don't have a philanthropic budget. And then finally we looked at our direction toward the Rotary Foundation. Where are we at that time? And it scared the absolute dickens out of me, because in March we were 51%. And I said, guys, we talk about measuring and managing. We're not measuring and managing this, but it got our attention. And now, you know, we're at 150%. So these are the things that we were looking at. What are our goals? What we did, the board wanted, not 4 or 5, the board wanted a bunch of goals to achieve. So we listed 20 of them. Some of those goals we achieved, some of them we did not. But as we achieved them, we put them up at the top in red. And those that we failed at so far, we put in black. And those that we couldn't achieve for one reason or another, like ambassadorial scholarships, I can't do that. So we put those in green. In real world, then, there were 17 goals. And so far, we have failed at 2 of those. And we have not achieved them yet. So one of the things that we wanted to do is to make sure the philanthropic budget was at least $100,000. So we're close to that, but we still got a few more weeks, and whether we're going to make it or not, I'm not sure. But the other 15 goals, we've been successful at. What about projects? You know, a project to us is either Rotary sweat or Rotary money. And so the first projects that we look at up there are fundraisers. This is key to us. And then the rest of those projects are things that will enhance our community, our world, or our group. So we started out with 30 projects, actually 31. And then as the year went by, the membership, 168 people, wanted to do a whole lot more than those 30. And they went after it with gusto. And before it was over with, we had almost 30 additional projects that came at us. So, but that has to be managed. That has to be looked at every single month in our board meetings. So again, the projects were important to us. Our operational budget was important. We were staying at a church that was giving us pretty much free ride. And we had some wonderful ladies that cooked food for us, and those women did a great job, inexpensively. But the church could no longer support us because the building itself couldn't support itself. So we had to leave there while they restructured that church. And we went from that inexpensive church to an operational budget that just blew us away because we moved to the country club. And the country club charges more than a church does. And so that operational budget was something we had to look at very closely every single solitary month. The second one was our philanthropic budget. We knew what that was going to be because in our club, the president-elect is in charge of the philanthropic budget. They're the ones who are in charge of the fundraising. So when I was president-elect, it was my job to get the money for my year as president. So the philanthropic budget was a lot easier to deal with than the operational budget. But we measured it and we managed it. Now how did we do that? It was pretty simple, and I'm going to step out over here just for a second. This is income and this is expenses. So what do you have? The income, we had a pretty good idea what it was going to be, but then we look at the expenses. And we have the philanthropic budget, and then we have some other expenses on there, which are expenses embedded in our operational budget, but for reasons that we want to keep them there in case we want those to be sure they have the money every single year. And so each month we looked at our operational expenses and we looked at this philanthropic.
Got 2 minutes.
Okay. We looked at new members, we looked at resignations, revolving door, not so good. We didn't do so good on that. We looked at successes. What are successes? Well, the successes happens to be with the committee chairs. There are 6 chairs who were directors, and then we set up 52 activity chairs. You can call them subcommittees if you want to, but we like the word activity. And then they had 93 different Rotarians working with them. Let me go through them rapidly. Club administration, this is their responsibility, and who's responsible for it. Public relations, and each of these people had to report each month. Service projects, and what projects that we had. We have the foundation, which was very important to us, and who's responsible for it. Membership, and we have new generation. New generation was important to us because youth was our emphasis this year. The youth initiative is what we spend our time on. And finally, when you get through with it, it really falls right back to what? Those 7 areas that we looked at when we started. Any questions?
We'll take questions.